This video will show you how to assemble the RadTrike. Photograph all four sides of the box and the label with the serial numbers. Keep these photos for your records. Remove the 6 plastic handle tabs from the box and then lift off the top of the box. The packaging that your trike comes in may differ from what you see in this video.
Locate the owner's manual and rider's quick reference card and set these aside for later. Next, locate the accessory box that contains the charger, headlight, handlebar stem faceplate mounting hardware, fender mounting hardware, pedals, and the assembly toolkit.
The assembly toolkit contains a variety of tools to help with assembly, but don't worry if you end up not using some of the tools. You'll also need a pair of flat side cutters, a pedal wrench, a bike pump with a Schrader valve and pressure gauge, a torque wrench with a set of Allen bits and a crowfoot bit, and some bicycle grease. Use your flat side cutters to cut the keys off the handlebar. Use the key to unlock and remove the battery from the frame. Set the battery aside for now. You'll reinstall it later. During assembly, be careful not to touch the brake rotor on the front wheel, as doing so can deposit oil on the rotor and reduce braking function. Cut the zip tie that secures the handlebar to the rear of the trike and grab a friend to help you remove the front of the trike and the handlebar. Set them down carefully on a clean surface and make sure you don't twist any of the cables. Remove the seat and set aside for later. Remove all of the packaging except the lower cardboard tray. Recycle all packaging according to your local guidelines.
Flatten the sides of the lower tray. Remove the 2 cardboard pieces that lock a smaller box into place. This box contains the rear fenders. Set the box and rear fenders aside for now. Make sure the corrugated cardboard pieces that secure the rear wheels and frame connection point are still properly in place and did not shift during shipping.
Use the 6mm Allen wrench to unthread the 4 bolts on the frame connection point. Remove the top 2 bolts and washers and set them aside in a safe place. Unthread the longer bottom 2 bolts until the bolt end is flush with the back of the opening. Position the washers directly against the bolt heads. With the help of a friend, carefully position the front of the trike over the bottom 2 bolts and washers on the frame connection point.
Reinstall the top 2 bolts and washers by hand, and then tighten all 4 bolts in an X pattern with your 6mm Allen wrench. Use a torque wrench to evenly torque the 4 bolts to the values listed in your owner's manual.
Make sure the lever on the stem riser's locking mechanism is secured. Hold the handlebar up on the stem with the brake lever on the rider's left side, facing forward, and the throttle on the right. Make sure the wiring harness is not twisted around the headset and the brake cable runs straight down to the front brake. Find the handlebar stem faceplate and mounting bolts in the accessory box. Center the handlebar on the stem. Install the 4 bolts by hand and use a 5mm Allen wrench to tighten part way in an X pattern until the handlebar is just tight enough so that you can adjust its angle. Adjust the handlebar so it is roughly parallel with the front fork. Ensure the gap between the faceplate and the stem is evenly spaced and the bolts are tightened evenly.
Torque all 4 bolts to the values listed in your owner's manual. Remove the blocks supporting the rear of the trike. Then, roll the trike off the lower cardboard tray. Engage the parking brake to ensure the front wheel does not roll forward during the rest of the assembly.
Find the motor, power, and wiring harness cables under the down tube. Push the rear cables up into the bracket opening beneath the frame connection point. The cables are color-coded to help you match them, but we recommend looking at the internal pin configuration to make sure your matches are correct. The wiring harness connectors have a gray stripe on the cable, and the connector interior has 10 small pins. Line up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of the wiring harness connectors and push together without twisting. The battery connectors have no color stripe on the cable, and the connector interior has 2 large pins. Line up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of the battery connectors and push together without twisting. The motor connectors have a white stripe on the cable, and the connector interior has 9 pins, 3 large and 6 small. Line up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows of the motor connectors and push together without twisting. Take up any slack from the cables, and then use the zip tie to secure the 3 cables to the mounting boss on the underside of the frame. Use flat side cutters to snip off any excess from the zip tie. Ensure the cut is flush and smooth with no sharp point. Find the headlight in the accessory box. Use a 4mm Allen wrench and a 10mm wrench to remove the bolt on the front fork and fender. First, pass the bolt through a washer, and then the headlight bracket, then the large concave washer, and then through the mounting point on the fork. On the other side of the fork, pass the bolt through the fender mounting arm, then place a washer over the bolt, and then thread the lock nut on by hand. Use a 4mm Allen wrench and a 10mm wrench to tighten the bolt.
Use a torque wrench to torque the mounting bolt to the value listed in your owner's manual, and find the headlight cable end with the red interior.
Line up the internal notch and pins and the external arrows on the headlight connectors and push together without twisting. Adjust the headlight angle slightly downward so that it will illuminate the road ahead without blinding oncoming traffic. Find the pedals and identify which is the right and left pedal by the sticker on the pedal or the markings on the pedal axle. Apply a pea-size amount of bicycle grease to the threaded portion of each pedal axle. The right pedal has a smooth axle and threads onto the drivetrain side of the trike. Carefully thread the right pedal by hand onto the right crank by turning clockwise toward the front of the trike. Be careful not to cross-thread or damage the threads. The left pedal has grooves on the axle and threads on the left side of the trike. Carefully thread the left pedal by hand onto the left crank by turning counterclockwise, also toward the front of the trike. Once the pedals are fully threaded onto the cranks, use the torque wrench with a crowfoot bit attachment to tighten the pedals to 35 Newton meters. Next, we'll install the seat and seat post. Open the quick release lever on the seat tube and align the quick release opening with the notch on the seat tube. Place a pea-size amount of bicycle grease on the seat post below the minimum insertion mark. Insert the seat post into the seat tube. Ensure the minimum insertion mark is completely inside the seat tube when installed. Adjust the seat post to a height appropriate for your leg length and preference, and close the quick release lever fully.
When closed, the seat should not move up, down, left, or right. If it needs to be tighter, open the lever and turn the adjustment nut clockwise until the lever is too difficult to close, and then loosen the adjustment nut counterclockwise 1/4 turn until you are able to close the lever. If the fenders shipped uninstalled, locate the rear fenders and mounting hardware for installation now.
Identify which is the right and left fender by holding them with the mud flaps facing you and the mounting arms positioned on the inside. Place the right fender over the drive side rear wheel with the 3 mounting arms positioned on the inboard side of the rear axle mounting flange.
First, tighten all 4 bolts by hand. Then use a 4mm Allen wrench to secure the mounting bolts to the flange. Place the left fender over the non-drive side rear wheel with the mounting arms positioned on the inboard side of the flange. First, tighten all 4 bolts by hand. Then, use a 4mm Allen wrench to secure the mounting bolts to the flange. Use a torque wrench to evenly torque the 8 bolts to the value listed in your owner's manual.
Next, we'll inflate the tires. Check that the tire beads and tires are evenly seated around the rims. Then, use a pump with a Schrader valve and pressure gauge to inflate each tire to the recommended PSI indicated on the tire sidewall. Perform a handlebar twist test by standing at the front of the trike and bracing the front wheel between your feet and lower legs. Hold both handlebar grips and push forward with one hand, while pulling back with the other hand. Push and pull with about 20 pounds of force with each hand. Check that the handlebar doesn't move out of alignment with the wheel. Then, switch hands so the opposite hands are pushing and pulling with about 20 pounds of force. If the handlebar and stem rotate out of alignment with the front wheel, check the tightness of your stem clamp bolts and your stem riser clamp bolt, and tighten if necessary.
Next, release the parking brake and perform a handlebar push test by bracing your front wheel against a wall and mounting the trike. Sit on the seat with your feet on the ground, squeeze the brake lever, and push the handlebar toward the wall with about 100 pounds of force. If the handlebar rotates inside the stem, you will need to set your parking brake, realign your handlebar, and retighten your stem faceplate bolts. Be sure to torque them to the value listed in your owner's manual.
Before riding, check that all hardware on the trike is torqued to the values listed in the owner's manual, and review the safety checklist on the quick reference guide. We recommend getting a tune-up from a local certified reputable bike mechanic within the first 50 to 100 miles of riding. Follow the maintenance schedule in your owner's manual. Get the battery you removed earlier and slide the battery back into place. Turn the key to the on locked position and then remove the key. Never ride the trike with the key in the battery. Press and release the power button on the handlebar remote to turn the trike on. Release the parking brake.
Never let anyone operate the bike unless they are at least 16 years old and have read the operating instructions detailed in the owner's manual. The age requirement for e-bikes may be older than 16 in your area. Check your local laws and rules for the areas you intend to ride. Whenever you ride, wear closed-toe shoes, comfortable clothing, and of course, a helmet. Make sure you can be seen by others on the road by wearing bright and reflective clothing and ensuring your headlight and taillight are always on and visible to others. Like all vehicles, e-bikes need to be checked regularly to ensure nothing will jeopardize your safety or the safety of those around you. Follow all safety instructions and checklists in the owner's manual. The latest update to the owner's manual for your rad bike is always available on our website at radpowerbikes.com/help. Make it a habit to thoroughly check your bike before every ride. If you're assembling the RadTrike for someone else, be sure to attach the rider quick reference card to the handlebar.
Reach out to our product support team if you have any questions, and ride rad.